What have I done? Oh my God, what have I done? That was all she could whisper. The early October wind howled outside the Mapleton Medical Clinic, chasing dead leaves across the empty parking lot. The sky was still gray, not yet dawn, when a beat-up sedan pulled to a slow, hesitant stop. Inside, a woman gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Her face was pale, tear-streaked, but her jaw was set with a finality that frightened even herself. In the back seat sat 3 little girls, identical, 5 years old, their pink coats zipped up to their chins, their dark eyes wide with sleep and unspoken questions. She opened the door slowly, like someone walking to her own execution. Then she unbuckled them one by one and helped them out. They stumbled on the wet pavement, holding hands sleepy and confused. She led them up the front steps of the clinic, knelt down, and pulled a small canvas backpack from her shoulder. "I need you to be brave, okay?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "Stick together. Someone kind will find you. They'll take care of you now." The girls didn't cry. The middle one just looked at her eyes, unwavering, sensing something much bigger than she could name. The woman hugged them tightly, too tightly. Then she stood. She didn't look back as she descended the steps. The car door slammed, tires screeched, and just like that she was gone. A silence settled over the clinic doorstep, broken only by the wind. The girls stood huddled together, coats too thin for the cold, their tiny hands intertwined. Inside the backpack was a sealed envelope. 3 birth certificates, a brief medical history, a faded photo of a smiling black man in military uniform, and a handwritten note. "I can't do this anymore. Their father is dead. I never wanted to be a mother to someone else's children. Find them a real home." Carolyn Wilson, were it not for the early arrival of nurse Jenny Thompson, they might have remained there for hours. Instead, Jenny saw them just as she pulled in. At first, she thought it was a mistake, 3 little girls standing alone like shadows in pink. She rushed over, heart-pounding. The middle girl stepped forward. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "My name is Amara," she said. "These are my sisters, Nancy and Na. Our mommy said you'd take care of us now." 27 years later. Karen Hewley adjusted the diamond pendant in the display case, her hands moving slowly, stiff with arthritis but steady. The morning light filtered gently through the large windows of Hewley Jewelers, casting glimmers across velvet-lined trays. Outside, Mapleton's streets had barely awakened, but inside, Karen was already deep in her routine, the rhythm that had carried her through decades of silence. She had stopped expecting miracles years ago, and yet some mornings still carried a weight of almost. The bell above the door chimed. Karen glanced up, offering her usual warm greeting only to stop mid-sentence. 3 young women had entered the store. They moved like shadows in perfect sync. Tall, elegant, their skin the deep smooth shade of polished onyx. Their high cheekbones, almond-shaped eyes, and quiet confidence drew the air from the room. Karen froze. For a heartbeat, she believed she was seeing ghosts. "Welcome to Hewley Jewelers," she said, clearing her throat, forcing composure into her voice. The woman in the center stepped forward. She was poised, her expression professional, but her eyes carried a storm. "Ms. Hewley," she said gently, "my name is Amara Brown. These are my sisters, Nancy and Na. We're the designers of the Trietra collection. We were hoping to speak with you about carrying our pieces." Karen felt the blood rush from her face. The Trietra collection. She'd been trying to contact them for months. The hottest name in jewelry design, sophisticated, sought after, fiercely selective. And here they were, in her shop. Of course, Karen managed, motioning them to the consultation room. "I'm honored. I've admired your work since Paris." They sat, and then everything shifted. The one named Nancy leaned forward, her voice lower, more personal now. "Before we talk business," she said quietly, "we'd like to ask you about someone. A woman named Carolyn Wilson." Karen's hand froze midair. The name struck like ice. A name she hadn't heard spoken aloud in over 2 decades. A name buried with grief and fury. I don't believe I know that name," she replied too quickly. "You might said Na, the quietest sister. She reached into her bag and pulled out a faded photograph. "She was our stepmother, and we have reason to believe you might be our grandmother." Karen's eyes fell on the photo, and the world tilted. The picture, creased and weathered, was one she hadn't seen in 30 years. A photo she had once given to her son, Dennis Brown, before his last deployment. He had promised to come back, promised to bring the girls to meet her. Instead, they disappeared. Her voice caught, her fingers trembled. What these women didn't know, couldn't know, was that Karen had spent 27 years searching for them, hiring investigators, following cold trails, praying, always praying that her granddaughters were alive. Now they were here, in her store, looking exactly like the man she lost. Karen's fingers curled around the edges of the photograph as if anchoring herself to a reality that suddenly felt distant, unreal. She stared down at the image she hadn't seen in decades. Dennis, her only son, standing proudly in his uniform, grinning at the camera with youth hope and something else in his eyes, something that now broke her heart to remember. He had written on the back, "Mom, meet your granddaughters. Amara, Nancy, and Na Brown. They're going to change the world someday." Karen looked up, her gaze shifting from the photo to the 3 women sitting across from her, those same little girls now grown. The shape of their eyes, the angle of their cheekbones, the quiet strength in their posture. It was him. He lived in all 3 of them. "I gave this photo to my son," she said softly, voice cracking. "Over 30 years ago." The room stilled. "We didn't know who you were," Na said gently, her hand resting on the table between them. "Carolyn never told us anything about our father's side, not until we started searching." "How did you find me?" Karen whispered. "We've been searching for answers for nearly 10 years, Amara said. "After we graduated college, we hired a private investigator. All we had was the name Dennis Brown and that photo." Karen closed her eyes. "I never knew you existed until after Dennis was gone," she said, her voice hollow. Carolyn vanished. "I couldn't find her. No forwarding address, nothing. I've been looking for you ever since." A silence fell, thick and heavy. "What happened to him?" Amara asked finally. "We were told he died in combat." Karen opened her eyes again, sharper now, darker. "He didn't die in combat," she said. "That's what Carolyn told everyone, but it's not the full truth." She stood, slowly walked to the painting on the wall and moved it aside. Behind it was a small wall safe. With practiced fingers, she opened it and retrieved a manila envelope. Dennis did his tour. He came home. But things with Carolyn had deteriorated. She placed the envelope on the table. They were talking about divorce, Karen said, about custody. It had gotten bad. Her voice dropped lower. "There was an accident. He was driving home late one night. The official report said he fell asleep at the wheel. But you didn't believe that Nancy said sharp as always." Karen shook her head. Dennis was careful. "And Carolyn, she changed after the funeral. She refused to let me near you. Shut me out completely." Na's voice was barely a whisper. "So she left us at a clinic and disappeared." Karen nodded. "I tried everything. Investigators, attorneys, social workers. But because of how she abandoned you without legal notice, you were put into the system under protected status. I couldn't trace you. We were lucky," Nancy said. "We stayed together. The Johnsons adopted us when we were 7. They were good people." Karen absorbed every detail, every missed moment of their lives pressed against her chest. "We also found something else," Amara said. "Something about the clinic." Nancy pulled out a folder and opened it. "Carolyn's mother used to work there. She was one of the founding nurses in the 1960s. Karen frowned. "So, she left you somewhere connected to her own family?" "That's what we thought too," Na said. "But not so you'd find us." Amara's eyes narrowed. "We think she wanted to make sure you never could." Karen's breath caught. "She wanted us to disappear," Nancy said. "But not die, just be unreachable." At that moment, the bell at the front door chimed again. All 4 women turned. Through the partially open door of the consultation room, they saw her, Carolyn Wilson. Graying blonde hairlines etched deep into her once beautiful face, eyes wide with recognition and fear. The paper bag in her hand slipped thudding to the ground. I didn't know, she stammered. I'll come back another time. Karen stood. No, Carolyn, she said. I think you should join us. The room held its breath as Carolyn stepped inside. Hello, girls, she said, barely above a whisper. You've grown up so beautiful. Amara's jaw clenched. Nancy's eyes remained cold and unreadable. Nah looked torn, hurt, and curious. Sit down, Karen said, motioning toward the empty chair. Carolyn obeyed. I didn't expect this, Carolyn said softly. That was the point, wasn't it? Amara snapped. To make sure we'd never find you. Carolyn flinched. I was broken. After Dennis died. I couldn't cope with the grief, the girls, everything. Then tell us, Amara said coldly. Tell us what really happened that night. Carolyn looked at Karen, then back at the girls. Dennis found out I'd been having an affair, she admitted, tears forming, with his commanding officer, Major Roy Phillips. Karen gasped. Nancy's pen stilled in her hand. When Dennis confronted me, it got ugly. He said he'd file for divorce, take full custody. He had evidence, emails, phone records. And Roy? Na asked. Carolyn's voice dropped to a whisper. He followed Dennis when he left, said he only wanted to talk, to scare him into silence. But Dennis's car went off the road. Do you believe it was an accident? Nancy asked. Carolyn's eyes flickered. I don't know. Roy came back an hour later, told me to get my story straight, that no one would believe me a struggling mother of 3 over a decorated officer. You lied, Amara said, and you let our father's name rot in silence for 27 years. I was terrified, Carolyn whispered. Roy made it clear if I said anything, I'd lose everything, including you girls, but you already lost us. Na said quietly. And now Karen said, voice steel beneath sorrow, we know the truth. But before anyone could respond, the shop bell rang again. This time it wasn't Carolyn. It was Roy Phillips. The room froze. Through the glass, Roy Phillips stood tall in a dark coat. His posture straight as ever, military bearing intact. His face had aged, but his eyes hadn't softened. They swept the store, landed on Carolyn, and then on the Triplets. Well, he said, stepping inside like he owned the space. This is quite the reunion. Karen felt her breath catch. Her hand instinctively reached for the small table beside her. The landline phone sat just inches away. You don't belong here, she said, standing. This is a private meeting. Roy smirked. A family meeting, I presume. That makes me... What an old friend. A former stepfather. Amara rose slowly. You don't get to claim that title. I'm not here to stir trouble, he replied coolly, though his tone was laced with something darker. Just passing by. Thought I'd say hello. But Nancy's eyes were locked on something else, Roy's hand. It hovered near his jacket pocket, fidgeting with something inside. Her instincts flared. Step away from the girls, she said sharply. Now. Roy's brows arched, amused. My, how commanding you've become. Like father, like daughter. Don't speak of him, Na snapped. That was when the door behind Roy opened again and Chief Sanford walked in, followed closely by Detective Dawson. Mr. Phillips, Sanford said calmly, but his eyes were alert. I suggest you remove your hand from your pocket. Roy hesitated. I said now, the chief repeated his voice like a blade. Roy slowly pulled his hand free. A metallic gleam flashed. Not a gun, a pocket knife. But that was enough. The officers moved instantly. Roy was forced against the glass, disarmed and cuffed in one practiced motion. You are under arrest, Dawson said. Pending investigation into the suspicious death of Dennis Brown. This is absurd, Roy spat. That case is decades old. New evidence, Sanford replied. New testimony, including Carolyn Wilson's. Roy's face twisted with rage as he looked at her. You. She didn't flinch. You destroyed everything. The sun had begun to lower over Mapleton when Roy was finally escorted out. The storefront was quiet again, save for the hum of emotion lingering in the air. Carolyn sat at the edge of the consultation table, shoulders sagged, her hands trembled as she clutched a velvet pouch. "I brought this," she said, placing it in front of the triplets. "It was Dennis's last gift to me. A necklace with 3 diamonds. He said each one was for a daughter, perfect, unique, stronger together." She opened the pouch. The necklace gleamed in the fading light. Na reached out, eyes misty. "It's beautiful." "I kept it," Carolyn said. "Even when I sold everything else to survive, I kept this. It reminded me of what we could have been." Amara didn't speak. Her expression was unreadable. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness," Carolyn whispered, "but I needed to tell you the truth. I couldn't let Roy win, not again." Nancy, always measured, finally spoke. "What happens to you now?" Sanford approached gently. "Carolyn's cooperation will weigh heavily in her favor. She may face charges as an accessory after the fact, but with full testimony and her mental health records, it's likely she'll receive probation and mandatory treatment." Carolyn nodded. "I've already checked into a residential program. I want to heal, not just for me, but for them." She looked at her daughters, then at Karen. "I was wrong about you," she said softly. "You would have been the grandmother they needed. I'm sorry I took that from all of you." Karen's lips trembled, but she gave a single nod. "We can't change the past," she said, "but maybe we can still shape the future." Weeks passed. Roy remained in custody. Forensic reanalysis confirmed the original crash had paint transfer from Roy's car. Dawson's new testimony, what he'd seen as a teenager but was too scared to repeat, strengthened the case. The district attorney moved forward with vehicular homicide and obstruction of justice charges. Carolyn stayed in treatment. The girls visited her sometimes together, sometimes alone. Forgiveness was not instant, but it had a door now, one they could choose to walk through in their own time. As for Karen and the girls, something unexpected bloomed. The store closed briefly for renovation. When it reopened, it was no longer just Hewley Jewelers. The new sign read, "Hewley and Brown Fine Jewelry. Eston, 2025, a legacy reclaimed." That evening the store glowed with soft lights. Velvet-lined trays displayed the Legacy collection, a blend of Karen's timeless elegance, and the Triplets' bold, modern flair. In the center, beneath a spotlight, stood one unfinished pendant, gold, shaped like a vine, now complete with 3 matching diamonds, finally. After 27 years. Chief Sanford arrived near sunset, dressed in a gray suit. "Am I early?" he asked, handing Karen a small wooden box. Inside were old clippings of Dennis's early days, lovingly preserved. "He would have loved this," Karen said, voice thick with emotion. "I think he'd be proud," Sanford replied, glancing at the triplets across the room. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the storefront dimmed, the girls approached Karen in the back office. "We have something for you," Amara said. Na handed her a small box. Inside, a gold bracelet of 4 interlocking circles, each studded with diamonds. "For the 4 of us," Nancy said. "Always connected, no matter what." Karen blinked back tears as they fastened it around her wrist. "It's perfect," she whispered. "Absolutely perfect." Outside, the streets were quiet. The shadows of the past were finally beginning to fade. And together, under the light of the new signs, the 4 women stepped into the night, no longer searching for a story, but finally ready to write their own. Epilogue. 3 months later. The grand reopening. The bell above the door chimed crisp and clear as the first guests stepped into the newly transformed boutique. Hewley and Brown Fine Jewelry. The name gleamed in delicate brass lettering on the glass window, flanked by fresh-cut flowers and warm string lights that glowed like candlelight. It was more than a reopening. It was a resurrection. Karen stood at the center of the shop, dressed in a tailored navy suit, her silver hair pinned neatly, the bracelet of 4 interlocking circles glinting on her wrist. She had spent months preparing for this moment, but nothing could have prepared her for the joy swelling in her chest. Amara joined her first elegant, in a structured black dress, greeting guests with poise. Nancy followed clipboard in hand, eyes scanning every corner to ensure perfection. Na drifted like light itself, offering champagne, exchanging laughter with customers, her calm presence a balm to everyone she touched. The store had changed. Soft gallery lighting highlighted the new legacy wall, a tribute to Dennis Brown. A framed photo of him in uniform stood at its center, surrounded by sketches of the first Triatra collection and a small plaque. For the father who saw diamonds in the rough, your legacy lives in every piece. Karen traced his photo with her fingers before turning to greet Chief Sanford, who arrived in a tailored gray blazer holding a small gift box. Found this at the Mapleton Archive, he said, placing it in her hands. The article from your original opening day. Inside was a yellowed newspaper clipping, Single Mother Opens Luxury Jewelry Boutique in Mapleton. Beneath it was a photo Karen, much younger, standing beside a shy, smiling Dennis, barely 20, holding a banner that read, Hewley Dreams Begin Here. Her hands trembled. Victor, she whispered, you always bring the things that matter. He smiled. I've always known where to look. Nearby, Maria Johnson, the girl's adoptive mother, approached. She embraced Karen gently. They've become everything we ever hoped, Maria said. Thank you for giving them the past. We gave them a future, but they always needed to know where they came from. Karen's eyes misted. And thank you for raising them with love. The evening unfolded like a dream. A quartet played soft jazz in the corner. Guests admired the Triplets' signature collections, each display marked with the designer's name, Amara Brown, bold, architectural, visionary. Nancy Brown, precision, geometry, balance. Na Brown, organic, flowing, emotionally rooted. In the center stood the unfinished pendant Karen once started, the one Dennis never lived to gift. Now completed with 3 diamonds, it shone beneath a halo of soft light. A sign below read, completed by the hands of those it was meant for, a circle unbroken. As the final hour approached, the sisters gathered with Karen near the display. We want to sign the final documents tonight, Amara said. Na opened a leather folder. Inside was the formal partnership agreement. From this moment, Nancy explained, we're not just collaborators. We're family in life and in legacy. Karen smiled, tears slipping free. You girls are everything Dennis dreamed. And more. She picked up the pen and signed. Hewley & Brown Fine Jewelry was no longer just a store. It was home. It was history. It was healing. That night, as the last lights dimmed and the 4 women stepped outside beneath the new sign, the cold autumn air kissed their skin, and Karen whispered, the story began with a mother who left, but it ends with daughters who returned. And in the silence that followed, they all knew the past no longer held them hostage. The future was theirs. Inspirational message. Whether you've been left behind, forgotten, or have a painful past, you can still choose to stand up, find the truth, heal your wounds, and rewrite your future. Because diamonds aren't made in the light. They're forged in the dark, and that's why they shine. You can also choose the shorter version. We don't get to choose where we start, but we do get to choose where we end up. Or a branded version. From the cracks of the past, a new legacy is born. Because families, even broken ones, can find each other again. And things thought to be lost are sometimes just waiting to be found.